how do we build our business? And you mentioned a really good point and a really good topic, and I want you to kind of go into it with me here. Someone had shared with you how to make $100,000 in those first 100 days, which I think that's where I'd like to take these next 8 weeks. Hey, Alex, how you doing, brother?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. We're back for episode 12, and before we get started, I've got to apologize. I'm sure, Alex, we didn't talk about this, but I'm sure you're right there with me. We've had a couple of technical difficulties in these past couple of episodes. We've ironed that out, which is why we started this, because we knew we were going to go through some of those growing pains, in all the different ways with the show. But we thank you for sticking around. We do feel we got this buttoned down now, and it's always an process of improving what we're doing in all the different ways, so that we can make this better for you. And to that end, please remember to comment on this, leave us some feedback on what you think, not only technically but also maybe what we can speak on that will serve you best. But I wanted to get started on our episode 12. But first, how you been?
I've been great, man. I've been I know
you were sharing with me a great positive week this past week, right, for the team?
Yeah. We went over our numbers, kind of like we were talking about last week, where we're at here in third quarter, how we're going to finish the year, numbers, so forth. Really proud because we're going to beat actually last year, and last year we beat the year before, and these last 2 years have been particularly, as we've talked about, challenging. So in that regard, really proud of what we've done. So it's
congratulations to you and the team.
Thanks, man. Yeah, really proud of them.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What were you going to say? The culture?
I was just going to say I think it's a testament to that ethos that we have of hungry, humble, and coachable, and just a culture of prospecting, getting together, being together, learning together, prospecting together, and having fun too. We're not just out there grind. We did call night last night, set multiple listing appointments, multiple buyer appointments, had some dinner, had some laughs, told some stories. It was nice. It's good, man.
Yeah. How important do you see that in terms of connecting with the team? Some of that personal downtime, non-real estate specific time.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. It was funny. I was on an accountability call with another guy who runs a team, and we were talking about just people talk about culture, and I never got it. I mean, we talked about that before, but it's like, man, to answer your question directly, I think it's a really integral part to growing a team. And I can't emphasize it enough that it takes that time to build that culture of that we continuously get together and everybody shows up. That's what so many team leaders want. They see other teams doing this stuff and they're like, I want that. It's like, you got to do it. You just have to create the culture. And if it's just you and one other person, I was talking to him and I'm like, because he was a little bit like concerned about an agent that is a top producer and having this fear that eventually they're going to leave. And I'm like, I always have my awareness that could happen. However, the culture is just so strong. Why would someone go somewhere else? They're making really good money, yeah, but they also have this connection with like a family feel. And so that's a tough thing to leave. Well, hey, if you're just making money, that's great. Obviously, why would you leave? But also then, like, the emotion is there, the feeling of being a part of something. That's the kind of magic that I never fully got.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that, when we were building the brokerage, it obviously something that always runs through your mind as a leader, as a broker, is, there's always those agents that are really top performers, and you do worry. I mean, just from a business perspective, you worry. It's like, man, that would be a big hit if he or she left or their team left, or it's always something that's really top of mind. But I always reverted to, our team is unique, our culture is unique, and I'm going to only attract and also keep those that feel like they belong here and that they thrive here in all of the different metrics, not just their real estate sales and their check at the end of the day. Although we're not fooling anybody here. That's very important. But also the door you walk into every single day, the laughs that you have with the people in that office, just that camaraderie and that synergy and energy that comes from that has a value, has a real value, and for some more than others. And I'm sure you've probably seen this as well. There's some that make a move because it's financial, and then they have that regret. It's like, this place over here, this new place that I thought was going to be better because I make X amount more, is a real shit show. I don't want to be here. Yeah. And so that happens as well too. And then of course pride gets in the way, and then like I can't go back, or I don't want to go back. So it's a challenge. It's always going to be a challenge. And speaking of challenges, it's kind of where I wanted to take our conversation today is, what's the new challenge right now? The new challenge is we've gone into a couple of 2, 3, 4 months now of what some of us refer to as a new normal, with the changes in NAR and the rules that have come down and how we need to operate. By and large, I like to think that a lot of that's been smoothed over probably faster and easier than maybe a lot of us anticipated. Yeah. And certainly a lot of people that were pushing fear and anxiety really didn't amount to much, and now we're moving forward, which was great. I think that from that perspective, I think the timing was great because it got us to this point where we're still essentially a couple months away from the new year, and I think we're all settled into this. And I think from here we can springboard into growth and get back to the important things that we need to be talking about is how do we build our business. And you mentioned a really good point and a really good topic, and I want you to kind of go into it with me here. Someone had shared with you how to make $100,000 in those first 100 days, which I think that's where I'd like to take these next 8 weeks, if you're cool with this, Alex, is talk about what are the things we need to do to have that very successful 2025 that we all are aspiring to.
Let's dig in. Yeah. Do you want me to?
Yeah. Tell me where that came from, that thought or that conversation that you had.
Yeah, that was actually shared with the world. Joe Rosen, who's a member of our organization as well, he saw, and I think it was a real estate mastermind. Somebody said, "How do I make $100,000 in 100 days?" And he did a really nice post, basically. And you brought up that we have 8 weeks here, kind of till the end of the year, and it was like 8 points that were pretty detailed for a Facebook post. And I thought it was a great kind of map, outline, guide, if you will, on how to do that, how to accomplish it. So I thought it was a great post.
Yeah. And before we hit record on this, we talked about how, a lot of this, because you and I have been doing it for so long, a lot of this is pretty clear and relatively simple, but not necessarily easy to adhere to. I think that's the challenge. And a lot of this stuff isn't groundbreaking, but I think the reason why a lot of these things are repeated over and over, or a lot of these strategies in a slightly different format, I'm sure, but they're repeated, is because they're effective. Yeah. I mean, this is the stuff you got to do every day, right?
Yeah.
So let's dive into the first one. So again, what Alex and I are trying to bring to you today are this breakdown of the things you need to do in order to be successful. And certainly if we follow the same title, is how to make $100,000 in your first 100 days. So let's get into the very first one. I'm just going to look down here at my notes in terms of what was shared. And number one is commit to a work schedule. Don't change it. And his was Monday through Saturday, 5:30 in the morning to 9 p.m., minus 6 to 7 p.m. for family time. And then I cut out short on Saturdays at 4 p.m. So this was what he had shared, right? Mm-hmm. So what of that scheduling resonates with you? What do you share with your team members? Or what do you see inside this specific little, recommendation has worked best for others that you've worked with?
Well, I would say first and foremost, you got to have some kind of routine. So for me, scheduling has a routine element to it, meaning, so he said 5:30. That's when my alarm goes off Monday through Friday. Like today, I didn't get up until 6:15 because I couldn't get to sleep until 11. But, I'm still up at that time. And then ultimately I'm at either role play or like doing this with you here this morning at 8 a.m. But I got a routine in there where I'm doing, which is part of the schedule, my schedule of, the morning walk, just kind of doing my meditation, my visualization of how I want my life to look like, my cold plunge, red light therapy, breath work, all that's done before 8 a.m. So there's so much of that, like taking care of my mind and my body is kind of taken care of, and I'm set for the day. Then it's into, I love, role play. I can't emphasize how important, again, coming back to culture, or if you're just an individual agent, starting the day with practice, getting the gears going for, conversations, and there's some structure to the role play, as in the schedule. So it's, breakout sessions. You can do whatever, work it on whatever you want. And we're looking for LP Mama. We're trying to set certain appointments. There's 5 appointments that they're shooting for, sprinkling in Ford. And then now
just break down LP Mama one more time for those who haven't heard that before.
Listing or location. You inquired about this property, or you're an expired, this is your property, it expired. Listing, location. You're searching in a certain area. Price is P. What kind of price range you're looking in. Next one is A, agent. Do you have a commitment to another agent? Not are you working with another agent? Do you have a commitment, especially with the BBA? That's a very important word to use, or word choice is important there between commitment and working with.
The proper distinction.
Yeah. And then the next one is motivation, which is probably one of the most important things, so that we talk about motivation being the when and the why. And the why is probably, out of LP Mama, the most important, because that's going to let you know, we're just looking, or, hey, we have a high motivation. We need to move within the next 3 months because of job transfer, kids' school, so forth. The next one is LP Mom. Where am I at? Motivation. And then the next one is listing, price, motivation, agent, mortgage. The next one is M, mortgage or money. So are you paying cash, or are you getting financing? And then the last one is the appointment. We have 5 appointments. You either want to meet someone face-to-face. You can show a property pixel to pixel, as we call it, on the phone. The next one is a live transfer to a lender. The next one is a follow-up. Okay, I'm going to send you these properties in this specific area. When are you going to have time to check them out? And then when's a good time for me to follow up? And then if they're outside of the area, needing either a buy or a sell as a referral to another agent. So there's a framework. What am I within the LP Mama that I'm going for an appointment? At the end of this call, there is something that's going to happen after the call. And then you're inside of that, sprinkling in to build rapport, Ford, family, occupation, recreation, dreams. And so that's kind of the framework of what those acronyms stand for. So anyways,
in order to get to that and be able to share that with the person on the other end, whether it's in person or on the phone, you gotta schedule these conversations so that you become very proficient at them, I would assume, correct?
Yeah.
That's why the scheduling is so important.
Correct. Yeah, so it's like 8 to 9 every day. The top agents on the team are there every day. The ones that are there for, the new agent that doesn't know what they're doing, has no competence really, they grow. We've seen it. I've seen it. Maybe we'll bring someone on the podcast here who's actually gone through role play and, from doing one rental to now, I think that agent's going to do probably 14 or 16 deals this year, going from nothing. So It works.
And for those that are watching this and their eyes glazed over because we said, because obviously we're sharing this specific framework that he came up with, that Alex came up with. Was it Alex? I'm sorry. No, not Alex. Joe came up with. He's got 5:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. What do you say to the person that immediately their eyes roll back in their head and like, I can't do that. I've got other commitments. How does that affect this 100,000 in 100 days?
Well, I would ask them, what are your other commitments and what are your priorities? So if your goals are big, you have to have your tasks or your focus be on those activities that will align with that goal. So for Joe, or the people out there that their eyes rolled, oh my God, like 5:30 to 9, 6 days a week, like that sounds like a. Well, Joe's a really, really committed person, right? Joe's probably going to make, I think his goal this year, and he actually is so committed to this that he, to your point, like I have other commitments. It's like his commitment is to make $500,000. So that's a big schedule for that kind of big number. You can modify it. Like, let's say I want to make $250,000. We'll cut this in half. I don't think it. Now, look, it's not just that easy, but you just have to kind of look at your goals. Joe's got big goals, and so he's not afraid to do the things that he knows he needs to do to get to that.
And he's identified that this is the path that worked for him.
Yep.
This is the path that probably one day, a while back, got him to 100,000, or got him to 200,000, or maybe got him to 50,000, and then from there he just did the math, right?
Right.
Well, if I got here by doing this at 50,000, let me make this adjustment so I can get to 100,000 and 200,000, and so on and so forth. So this is being shared by someone who's already reached a level that most agents could only aspire to, right? I think there's a juicy group between that 100,000 and 200,000. So there's probably, we know that there's the vast majority are under the $100,000 mark. We already know that because the stats tell us that. Mm-hmm. So, but there's certainly enough out there that are probably listening to this, like, yeah, you know what, I do. I may only be at 60 or 75, but where's that adjustment that I need to make in order to get to this six-figure and above level? And let me see who's done it and what do they have to share with us. So that's why I think we're so interested in wanting to share this, because although it's relatively quote unquote simple, you have to adhere to it so that you can accomplish that very goal.
Yeah. So
let's keep moving on with point number 2. And this one I love because this one of the parts of growing my business this is what I enjoyed so much, which is massive prospecting. And he says, quit overthinking if cold calling is better than open houses. I love that. Pick 3 prospecting pillars, read a ton of books, and watch a ton of videos about them. Become obsessed on becoming the best prospector ever in those 3 areas, and commit to 3 to 4 hours of daily prospecting. So before I kick this over to you, there's a couple things that I really like about this. And one is the idea of picking 2, 3, 4 prospecting avenues. Mm-hmm. If you've been in this business for any length of time, you've realized that there is an inordinate amount of marketing, services, directions that you can go in to create your business, to build your business. And that can sometimes be very paralyzing to a lot of people. Because, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, or that works better, or this guy said this, or this gal said that, and she did it like this. Yeah. What I'd like to say kind of out loud and very clearly is that there are many, 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 many ways to do this and do this incredibly successfully, but you have to pick. It doesn't mean that all of these things do or do not work, but you have to become very proficient at a small group of them. Then, and only then, would I recommend someone to invest time, money, energy, building a team, whatever it is, to go after effort number 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Then you can layer on these other ones. but not until you become, and the way Joe said it here is also very important, which is my second point, but not until you become very masterful at those. And that would be my 2 cents into, based on my experience, is there's an element of putting blinders on for especially this kind of early, or when you're floundering, you don't have much of a plan, to put those blinders on and focus on those 2 or 3 or 4 efforts so you become exceptionally good at it. And not only will that help you, but it's how can I put this into words? You're rising to the top, right? Because the amount of people that will do that amount of work to become expert at something is much, much less. And so not only are you learning, but you're also eliminating what could potentially be competition because you're just so damn good at it. So that's my take on this point. What do you think?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with it more. One of the things that we do, and again, I keep just bringing it back to actual experience. So this is not my philosophy. This is my experience. If you make enough calls, and we've seen it with the folks that do, like Diego on the team does every Wednesday, double your database, and he's part of one of his pillars, which Joe talked about here, is circle prospecting. And it's amazing, man. If you do it, if you sit down for 2 to 3 hours, you're going to find somebody that'll, they're shooting for just getting email addresses. Sometimes you will find a person in there that wants to sell. Like, it's pretty rare, but you're just gathering, you're building your database. Now, we also have systems that, okay, you're getting somebody's email address. Great. What kind of happens automatically so you did that kind of sifting and you found someone that didn't come through a pay-per-click lead or whatever, you put their email address in. How is that person then being cultivated with the CRM? So we have systems within the CRM that send out information to them to continue to be in front of them. So just an example of, if you chose circle prospecting, you might watch like Ricky Carruth is a kind of a crazy, not crazy, but just was fanatical. And I do want to mention a book.
Very outspoken.
Yeah. I want to mention a book specifically because we're talking about prospecting. There's a book called Fanatical Prospecting. It's written by Jeb Blunt, Blount. And he basically tracked, prospecting. And so it's a great book to just give you an idea of it. It does have to be, I think he uses that word it's a great title for a book, right? But it is fanatical. And that's what Joe's talking about. It's every day, time blocked for that prospecting time. So a little bit sideways there, but back to the point, that circle prospecting, one pillar, then it's, okay, I do open houses, but you can overlap the circle prospecting with open houses, meaning, okay, I've got an open house here on Saturday. And this goes back into if you're sitting there with the seller and saying, hey, what do you do differently? It's like, well, I actually, when I do this open house, it's not just I stab a sign in the ground and do a Facebook post. I stab a sign in the ground, or I do a lot of signs in the ground around the area, pointing everybody there. I have, Facebook posts and so forth. I do a live when I go there, but you circle prospect around that open house. So you're actually saying, hey, we have this open house. I'd like to invite you to it. So you have something you're calling that person rather than just, would you like to sell your house? You're inviting them to an event. So that just goes back into that fanatical around circle prospecting, but around open houses as well. Then you'd want to have maybe a third. I don't know if it's pay-per-click, it's Zillow, it's for sale by owners. I don't know. But it's the fanatical 2 to 3 hours a day, which I think a lot of people were like, no, I just want the system that has people call me. Me too. If you find it, let me know. Well, we found it, but they cost a lot. It costs a lot, We've talked about Zillow and that, if you want your phone to ring, you're going to pay. So which way are you going to pay? You're going to pay in your time or you're going to pay in your money?
Yeah, exactly right. You took the words out of my mouth. The sweat equity versus actual opening your wallet. Your time versus writing a check for something.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, number three this gets us to number three, which is set big goals. So he's got it big and capitalized. Big goals. Track your performance, which I love too, and meet with your coach, mentor, team leader monthly. Standing appointment. Not when you feel like it, not when you think a month has gone by. Standing appointment. Which also, before I continue on this point, is so important that if you're someone who needs mentorship and leadership to be successful, which especially early on, and I would say even people that are in mid-career could really benefit from. That's also one very important distinction that you need to look for when you're looking to hang your license somewhere, whether it's for the first time or moving to a new place. You need to identify that that's you and that's what you need. Standing appointment to review. What did you do well? What were you not good at? And what are the top two things you need to do or change to improve your performance and or efficiency? And then he goes on to say, in my opinion, the two biggest metrics to track are conversations and appointments met. Couldn't agree more. My goal is 57 weekly conversations and 2.27 appointments met weekly. 9 a month, which equals 9 a month.
Yeah.
So he's got to get in front of 9. These are his stats. And again, these are really specific numbers. Why? Because they're based on his success. So you're able to track, and you and I have talked about this, and you're big on this as well, tracking your numbers, because you can't forecast and invest properly for the future without proper numbers. And you just, in the moment, also don't know where you are. Are you succeeding? Are you growing? Or are you, receding? That's very important to know. So again, his goal is 57 weekly conversations and 2.27 appointments met weekly, which are 9 a month. But back to the main topic here, and I'll kick it to you, Alex. Set big goals, track your performance, and meet with a mentor.
I would start first, I think it was back to the fourth point there, having someone I think that you're accountable to is important. I do. For me, I've been very accountable to myself, and I've mentioned my tracker, right? Like I've got a thick, 4 years at least of these monthly trackers. And that's accountability to myself. So I can't hide from that. So if you don't want to do that and have someone that you are accountable to, that you meet with, whether it's weekly, and I would say it's good to have someone, like we have a little accountability text in the morning between people in my group. And it's just, what did I do yesterday? What's my goals for today? And then that bleeds into the big, those daily little goals lead into that big goal. So are we on track to get to that? Or did we set those big goals and then we don't have any accountability for the activities that need to be adhered to make that happen? And the numbers that need to be hit as well, to your point about tracking numbers. So it's good stuff, man. It's set big goals. They might seem... I remember the first time I wrote down my goal for 100,000, and it seemed like a really big number. And that was probably first time I made $100,000. I would say it was probably like 2010, 2011, something like that. But at the time, it was a really big number. It was BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal. That's from John Kitchens. Set goals that make you uncomfortable. I think that would be a better way to put it. That big goal is something that makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable, and then have somebody hold you accountable.
Yeah, that you don't realize that you think, to your point, that you think are not possible. They're just so lofty, and that you think are impossible. And to that, you don't even know what the path is to get to it. Just know that if you know that people have gotten there, and you know that that is appealing to you, and then you also know that there's a lot of sacrifices going to go into that, because if you pick a $500,000 or $1 million sales goal, commission goal, earned commissions, that's going to require a different level. But I'm certainly, if we're talking to just the individual or independent agent, single agent, 100,000, 200, 300,000 is a realistic number if you apply a process. Like by yourself, maybe with a VA or an assistant part-time, and maybe one day we'll talk about how to maybe bring your first hire on. I think that would be an interesting conversation too, because I know there's also people that are watching that are kind of, maybe pulling their hair out because they're doing everything and juggling every single ball that's up in the air, and that could become stressful and difficult and challenging. But make no mistake that if you're shooting for 500,000 to $1 million, that's a whole different level. And not to say it's not attainable, because it absolutely is, but it's a different plan slightly, and it's also a different adjustment in your mindset and in your priorities in your life. But number 4, use a CRM. Again, I'm right in line with Joe with everything he's come up with here so far. Using a CRM, and what that means to me is having one place that is organized, that is consistent, that plays well with other software where I can export, import, move things around, plug it into other services to maybe start a mailing service, a text campaign. That is current and technically proficient for today's world and the way we communicate and get things done. So I think there's a time and place for a spreadsheet when you're first getting started, just to kind of get your head around the information you need to kind of gather and keep and maintain. But technology has made it relatively easy and very affordable on a monthly basis to have a proper CRM if your organization doesn't provide it, out of the box, included with your you being a member of the team, which I believe your team does, correct? You guys all use the same CRM? Yeah, wonderful. So that's a benefit of being inside of EXP, is that we have those tools already available to you. And what's nice about that is, since everyone's using it, everyone's proficient at it, so it's easy to get a question answered as to how to do this or how to do that, or if I push this button, what happens? And he stopped there. He just said, use a CRM. That was the extent of his point number 4. Yeah. Where does CRM fit in your thought process in terms of, helping agents become successful and get to that $100,000 level?
Yeah. It sits at the very top because I think it brings a lot of what we're talking about here into a actual kind of getting out of the ether a little bit into the practicality. And you put it really well. Everything's organized, and you can't hide from. You can track in your CRM. Most of these CRMs, you can track how many calls did I make, how many appointments did I set. It has all of this functionality in it that we're talking about. So I love that he just put use a CRM. I love that you just emphasize that too. It's just there's not a lot of fluff around that. This ties a lot of what we're talking about together. And, you mentioned one thing, which I want to double click on a little bit. Everyone's proficient. Not everyone is proficient. It's the agents that will take the time to learn the little things in there. As an example too, though, part of our culture, after I do this every Thursday, I go over with the team and I'm using the CRM. And frankly, man, I'm not in the CRM as much as the agents are. So the interface is I learn little things when I'm in there. Like Jessica on our team, she probably knows it the best. And she's like, yeah, you just click this, do this. And so as I'm doing that, as I'm learning it, as I'm becoming more efficient with it, the other agents on the team I just learned that. I learned that. So the proficiency, not everyone is as proficient as everyone else. Obviously, the team leader, myself, I'm not as proficient as some of the agents on the team. However, that's just part of the process, is getting better and better and learning that interface and all the little functionalities that can give you leverage of being able to email 200 people, hey, I hope you're okay through the hurricane. I'm, da 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 da. I want you to know we're okay through the hurricane. That kind of stuff. Happy Thanksgiving, Happy Christmas, Merry Christmas. I guess you can't say that anymore, but my point is that not everybody's as proficient, but you want to have that culture where everybody's helping one another, and it's not just you one-on-one, every agent teaching them the CRM. You want a community that does it. I'm kind of going a little bit higher level here from a team side. But back to you, if you're just that single agent, to Eddie's point, hopefully your company provides you with a good CRM. Learn it. Learn it the best you can. And Joe has in here, I think you're going to get into your further on down here, is dedicating an hour or two a week. That's the time block. That's the scheduling of, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to learn a couple of new things. And then the next day, a couple of new things or one new thing. And then that stacks. And then by the end of the year, you're incredibly proficient with the CRM.
Yeah, I mean, you took my next point, which I love. So thank you for moving me in that direction, which is the time blocking. And if we kind of do a step 4.5, if you will, and merge these two, yeah, I agree. Taking time to time block to maybe attend a mastermind on that specific CRM, maybe attend a workshop on that specific CRM, which is whether it's from your team, inside your team, because they're hosting one, or they have a recurring one, or they have YouTube videos up on how to use it or how to maximize, get the most out of your CRM, to set these auto campaigns if necessary, or certainly one-offs like you mentioned. That was a great point. Hey, how are you guys doing through the hurricane? Is there anything we could help you with? Here are 3 links to FEMA. Here a link to how to get relief. Your local charities if you need any kind of help. All that just makes you a good steward inside of your community and someone that is seen as being very helpful. So obviously that's a little bit more on the marketing side, but using that CRM, incredibly important. And then to your point, which brings us to number 5, which is, Joe said, time block every day before you start it. If your workday starts at 8 a.m., either finish the day before by creating today's schedule, or block off 8 to 8:10 a.m. to create today's schedule. So the importance of blocking time to get all of these things on the list done, and respecting and honoring that. And in that, to me, what it comes to mind is remembering why I've decided to embark on this journey of a successful real estate career. What are my priorities? Why am I doing this? For whom? And for what reason? A lot of those times it's important to remind yourself of that so you can get back on track if you go a little bit off track in terms of your time blocks and your calendaring system. But what specifically, Alex, do you use or tools, habits, daily things that either you, let's stick with you because you've been doing it for a long time. Time blocking. What does that mean for you in a more granular sense? How do you time block?
I want to go back a second, and I'll hit that time block, but I think you hit a point that's really important, is if you don't have that clear why, when it starts to when there starts to be some friction, meaning friction is... What's that?
And there will be.
I love that. There will be. Yeah, there will be. That's right.
And there will be.
There will be. 100% lean in on that because it's the doggone truth. When you have those points of friction that are going to happen, you revert back to, what's my big why here? Why am I doing this? I think that's important. I just wanted to really emphasize that point. Back to, I got to kind of go back almost like 3 or 4 years to, I think, speaking to this audience of like what made me successful in that regard, is kind of like that. Still have a team, but I was still a lot in production. Is I literally would set, it's just it's straightforward to me, but I want to mention this, and I think we've mentioned it before. I think a lot of people were lied to that real estate is all freedom. Like the freedom to do what you want, when you want, how you want, type stuff. You got lied to. I'm just going to tell you, you got a little bit lied to, because there is not a lot of freedom. You can choose when you want to do the stuff. So there's freedom in that, with what Joe's talking about here, but he's very, very clinical about, and I know Joe, because like you'll be on an accountability or anything with him. When that time hits, he doesn't go for another 10 or 15 minutes. Oh yeah, he's like, I got to go. Like but that's Joe. He was military, so he's got that discipline. He's got the scheduling and all that. And I think that is what gives him massive advantage, because he has that discipline and he has that scheduling already very, very ingrained in him. On the other side of that, I think that people, again, got lied to that you can do pretty much, you got all this freedom. And it's like, yeah, technically you don't have a job that you have to show up at, and because you're going to get a check at the end of the week. If you don't show up, you don't get the check. But it is that. If you don't show up Monday, Tuesday, all those days, you're not going to have a check. The crazy thing is, because it's a lagging thing, all these appointments and that and conversations, you don't see anything for another 2 or 3 months past when usually those connections were made. So that's where it can get really slippery, and you can get behind really fast, and then you can't make it up. You can't just go, I'm going to prospect my butt off for 3 days and then make up for the last 3 weeks that I didn't. It doesn't work like that. So I don't know if that answered the question, but for me, you asked me, it was just time blocking, man. It was like back to the Jeb Blunt, back to, set the time aside, non-negotiable. And there's where I'm talking about that freedom. You're like, wait a second. I wanted to go to the beach. I had a couple happen this week, man. Like my buddies were asked me to go play golf today. Really nice golf course. I'm like, no, I've got commitments to the team. Now, here's the crazy thing. People are like, well, as a team leader, I can go and do that. And it's like, no, you still have to do those things. That's a block of time that I've committed to the team. Sure, could I bail? Would it work still? Probably. But if I keep doing that, back to your momentum you asked me about, I think we talked about momentum a little bit. You'll start to lose that momentum with the team. They'll be like, where's Alex? Why isn't he here doing what he said he was going to do? Maybe I don't need to do what I said I'm going to do, right? So that's leadership.
He's telling me I have to do this, but yet he's not here.
Right.
So how important is it really?
Correct.
And you're the leader.
Correct.
They're looking up at you. You sold them. You sold them something. You sold them on something. You sold them on you. You sold them on your team. You sold them on what you were going to do. You sold them for sure, 100%.
Yep.
And then they said, yes, I'm hitching my wagon to Alex.
Yeah.
And then you don't show up.
Well, the same, Eddie, right?
Like
the same as if you made a commitment to you sold yourself. I'm getting into real estate and I want to make $100,000. I'm tired of this job. Like I want to get financial freedom. You sold yourself. So are you going to sell yourself short? Are you going to go play golf when you said you're going to prospect? It's the same thing. And then it escalates up.
Yeah,
so
and one thing
sorry.
No. You're finished. Please finish your thought.
I'm just going to say that it escalates up, right? So because I did the things that I said I was going to do before I had a team to myself, that sets me up for when I have a team, which I do now, I still do that stuff. So that's the discipline, especially then when you start to get some of that freedom and you start to get some of that leverage. There's an old saying, don't mistake luxury for leverage. Meaning, if you have a team that's giving you leverage, be careful about, that gives me the luxury of going and playing golf at the time when I said I was going to do these other things, right? So got to be careful about just being disciplined to yourself first, to the accountability to the team, they may not be over your shoulder, like, hey, you said you're going to do this, you didn't do this. But they are. They're in the back of their head, to your point, like, what hey, Alex said, He's gonna be here. He's not here.
This one is, he made it really kind of cut and dry, which I also appreciate and like, because there is obviously a lot of truth to this one specifically. But I love your take on kind of where the left and the right of this position might exist. And that is work at least 50 to 60 hours a week, period. Can you do this? Can you reach this goal at 10 hours a week, Alex? Or is 40 weeks possible, depending on how organized you are? Or do you, because you are, you're like a squirrel with shiny objects and, oh, look at that, maybe you need 80 hours a week. Where do you think this falls for most?
To make 100,000 in 100 days or 100,000 a year or what? And you mentioned,
yeah, I mean, we're still on track for 100,000 in 100 days.
Yeah. I think it depends on where you're at. So, like, let's say it's somebody that's been in the business 2 or 3 years. They've sold some properties, got a little momentum. Maybe they made 50,000 or something like that. And again, we're talking to people from around the country. You mentioned it off air. You might be in an area where the median sale price is 150,000. To your point, there's not many of those left. But if you're in a big metro area, these numbers are going to be a little bit different. Let's just put it this way, in a general sense. If you're at that 2 to 3 years, I think you made a really good point there. Like really evaluating how much are you really working? Meaning, to me, if you're sitting for an hour working on your CRM, that's an hour. If you're actually prospecting for 2 to 3 hours, like actually prospecting during that time, not I'm kind of on Facebook, I'm kind of doing this, I'm kind of doing that. That's not really an hour of true work on that task. So, if you're at that 2 to 3 year mark, I think you need to take stock. I think you need to take a real hard look at how am I spending my day and how much time am I actually working, not busy. So that's the 2 to 3 year person. But the year one person, I think that 50 to 60 hours is a must. You got to look at it like, look, if you started a business, you started an ice cream shop or I don't care what it is. There's going to be a massive amount of effort to get it moving, like that you mentioned it earlier, like momentum. Have you ever seen that the strongman thing, pulling the truck? Yeah. Like I love that one because it's like it takes a bunch of effort to get the thing going, and then it takes less effort as you get the momentum of that big truck rolling. So in the beginning, in this metaphor that I'm using, it might be 60 to 70 hours. It might be 7 days a week, really putting in 6 months, a year on the front end of a lot of that work. And again, what is your goal? What is your big why? And if you're constantly looking at that, like that's why I have these pictures of my daughter back here, man. Like not just to get sympathy or love from the audience, but it's like it's a reminder to me. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I staying up late? Why am I getting up early? Why am I doing things that I may not want to be doing? Why am I not going to play golf when I get that invitation? Like, what holds me into my commitments? That's my big why. I don't know if that answered the question.
Well, you made a really strong parallel. There between, I think sometimes this is lost, and we touched on it earlier in terms of, you're an agent and now my schedule is mine. I can do whatever I want. I have all this freedom, blah, blah, blah. But, you just mentioned it too, it's like starting any other business. I mean, in order to get that momentum, you've got to do so much. And no one's there to write you a paycheck on Friday at 5:00. It just doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. So although there's quote unquote perks, they're hard to see sometimes.
Yeah.
And you're certainly not going to achieve a lot of those perks if you're not able to weather this initial trudge of doing and mistakes and again and again and again until you have this momentum, which is exactly what it is. Which leads us perfectly to number 7, which is how do you build momentum and how do you, make that progress. And number 7 is invest 2 hours a week learning something that'll improve your skill set. Right? So now this is drilling down. We just talked about 50 to 60 hours a week, and obviously could be a little bit less, could be a little bit more, depending on who you are, where you are, what your market is, all that. But then drilling down into number 7 is investing 2 hours a week into something specific, learning something that'll improve your skill set. So he said here, role play, YouTube, Google, books, events, which I love because events is not only just an opportunity to learn, but you actually get to interact with others, especially if they're live. You can work the room, shake hands. I think those are great opportunities to build relationships. And then brokerage and team meetings, like I know you and the team do on the regular, because they have value. But I know you're going to be for this, but investing 2 to 3 hours weekly to improve your business. How do you, besides the trainings that you guys do in your weekly meetings, how else do you, maybe the next 1 or 2 after that you recommend or that you guys actually already incorporate as a culture of your team?
I'm going to kind of go back to, I think, the beginning of your question, which has a couple different aspects to it. But you said, how do you build momentum? I'm going to mention one thing that's been really, really, and I think this ties in to number 1 through 6 in a way here. I'm going to mention one thing here that's a tactical thing that you can do that will help you create momentum. It doesn't cost you anything. Literally, that's not a program that you have to buy into. There's no coaching, nothing. What it is something that's going to hone your personal discipline, which without discipline of like that strong man, if he quits, like I'm going to keep going I'm going to keep going. Like that's the discipline. I'm not going to quit. I'm not getting an instant result. This thing is not moving, but I know if I just keep going, it'll eventually break and I'll start to get some momentum. That is the hard 75. I said it. So it's, again, this is not something I'm pitching as far as a program or buy this or whatever. It is a simple framework to build discipline, which will create momentum. And so the hard 75 is it's 75 days. So that's Monday through Sunday rather. These specific things. So you're doing working out twice a day. So this comes into like, well, I can't work out for 45 minutes a day twice. Like it comes into the scheduling. This is what I really learned. One of the things, because I was already pretty disciplined, but I learned this aspect of discipline that was something that was lacking. And you're always going to, the Navy SEALs have a saying, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to the level of your training, right? So
I love that.
Yeah, I think it's a really powerful notion. Like you can only go to the level, the degree of the work that you put in or the training that you put in. So that aside, scheduling, right? So the 45 minutes twice a day could be 2 45-minute walks. It's not like high impact training twice a day for 45 minutes. Like you can go for 2 45 minutes. Well, I don't have time. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You just choose to allocate that time to other things. And that's where the awareness I mentioned earlier of that person that's maybe in 2 to 3 years, taking stock in what are you really doing in that day? So if you start to do something like the hard 75, which maybe there are other programs out there, this has worked for me. Working out twice a day, drinking a gallon of water, no alcohol. Look, there's lots of podcasts out there. Look at Huberman and these other folks and Jordan Peterson and like the physical side of drinking and then the mental side of drinking and what it detracts from your life. Look, I'm not taking a stance. I quit drinking 5 years ago rather. But anyways, so no drinking. You read 10 pages of a self-help or motivational book a day. That's probably going to take you half an hour, 45 minutes. So there's part of what Joe mentioned of 2 to 3 hours a day or a week. So that kind of is right there. If you're reading 10 pages a day of a self-help or motivational book, and that could be, how do I do systems, whatever. It's rather than fiction or novels or that kind of stuff. And you take a selfie at the end of each day. I might have missed one in there, but you could look up the hard 75. So my point was here, something tactical for the audience. that person that's in for 2 to 3 years, or maybe you're a team leader looking to kick it up to the next notch, I think the Hard 75 is a very, very useful, doesn't cost you anything, but it creates accountability, which I mentioned earlier, to you. You're the one that knows if you're cheating. You're the one that if you get 3 or 4 days in, you know if you quit. You know if you didn't drink your water. You know if you didn't even okay, I drank, you're keeping track of the numbers. I drank this. It's 8 of those pints a day. So I just had on my little tracker that each time I drank one of those waters, boom, I would put that down. There's a little dopamine hit actually from accomplishing something, and then you're able to track it, right? So it gets you into the thinking of tracking, accountability, which I think is those two things are probably the most important bits when we talk about accountability, which we mentioned earlier. So, I don't know if that
yeah, listen. Later in my career, as I continue to train and help other agents, I really slimmed all of this down as listen, this is not rocket science. There's work to be done, and good news for you, all that work and that framework exists, and all you have to do is do it. Yeah. That's it. And that's why we have the percentages of successful agents that we do, and that's why we have the high percentages of real estate agents that do not sell more than a house a year.
That's the truth.
You got to do the work. You got to do the work from a technical aspect, maybe not technical aspect, but from an industry aspect of the things that I have to do specifically inside of real estate. But then I would say that the mother work is on you and who you are and what you need to figure out about yourself, your why. Are you up for this challenge? Like the Hard 75. Are you up for this challenge? Because it's a challenge and there's work to be done. And that's how I share this path with a lot of people. It's not impossible and it's not difficult. And it's been done many times. And there's evidence of that. And there's frameworks and strategies to achieve the exact same thing. Do you want to do it? Yes, I do. Most of them say yes in the very beginning. Yes, Eddie, I'm here and I'm committed. And I'm listening to you and I'm going to do the thing. And we know by and large, a lot of them just don't. And that's what it falls into. Yeah. Which really leaves us with number 8 is kind of investing 2 to 3 hours. It's similar to kind of what we were, these last two can kind of be married together, but investing 2 to 3 hours weekly, improving your business. This gets more into the specifics, right? Because we talked about the role play and improving yourself more on the self-help, but this is more specifically real estate, which is building the CRM campaigns, creating a weekly email that's easily replicatable, I would guess. Yeah, replicatable. Thank you. Couldn't read that. Creating your performance tracker, creating open house checklists, creating buyer and seller checklists. So these are all real estate related assets that you've created, that you've built, that are branded to you, that share your message, target your audience, and then you now serve that up through the systems you've created, which again may tail back into the CRM, email campaigns, etc. But I think that's where it leaves us to a more practical sense. Are there 2 or 3 of these that kind of really resonate with you and your team in terms of, the actual marketing assets that go out and that you guys create?
Frame the question again, please.
Are a couple, 2 or 3 of these things, some of those things that you actually are those deliverables, those marketing assets, those pieces that you guys are actually creating on a regular, like going out? I know earlier you mentioned the email and, gathering emails, sending out emails, sending out happy anniversaries and congratulations and happy birthdays and things like that to keep those relationships warm. But beyond that, what are the maybe 1 or 2 that are really kind of top of mind specific that you guys get out on the regular? Because we're talking about doing this thing on a regular, on repeat. What are those couple other 2 things that you guys do really well?
I think we do a lot of things well. I just go back to the foundations, morning accountability. Text goes out. This is what I did yesterday. This is what I did the day before. These are the things that I see the people that are successful, what they're doing doing the morning accountability. They're coming to the role play. They're coming to the phone jams. They're coming to the calls with me. They're coming to our Friday meetings. So it's
But
that.
what about specifically to the customers, to the buying and selling public? What goes out to them?
Oh, okay. Like on real super. Okay, you get super tactical.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah,
Now we're a
yeah.
little more tactical. Yeah.
So we have, I wanted to kind of mention this. We're talking about a lot of stuff here that you can do as an individual agent, these checklists and all that kind of stuff. I got to say it, man. If all of this sounds really daunting, you might want to join a team that has this stuff already squared away. So I'm going to mention a few of the things that we do. We do like open house flyers that go on to social for the agents, and then they can take that piece and they don't have to develop it in Canva, right? As an example, just an example, like, okay, I'm doing an open house. Well, you got to learn Canva to do an open house flyer. Do you really want to do that? Like maybe you do, maybe you don't. We do bi-weekly emails to the whole database that are professionally copywritten, that basically enroll people in requesting home valuations. And then when they click on that, we get a whole form. What is the home they inquired about a home valuation on? What is this does like a valuation, kind of like a Zillow's estimate thing. And then you call them. So that's integrated into the CRM, this system, which I don't want to mention this because I love it so much, and I'm going to hold it for somebody that wants to reach out and potentially join us, because there's certain nuggets that I just will not just give out, because it's really powerful. And I don't quite frankly, I believe in abundance, but this one I'm going to hold a little tighter, Eddie.
So let me just say, if anybody that wants the nuggets, make sure you comment below. Share nuggets, nugget time, whatever you'd like. Refer to the nugget, and then we'll make sure that we get in touch with you guys and share it with you. But go ahead.
Yeah, that's right. So there's the art of enrollment too. So I don't know if there's anything else other super special in there. We really tried to I enroll the agents in like, hey, if you get a review on our Google business profile, so that might be another little thing in there. If you're an agent, you might want to start a Google business profile. Like, again, it is a bear, so that's why you might want to join a team. If you're in a local area, reach out to us. We can point you to a team that's in your area that we think is a good team, because there's good teams. Not that there's bad teams. I was thinking about this the other day, man. I think there's some teams that call themselves a team and they're really a club. They've
gotten pretty loose with some of that. I would agree. And I would say that, if
don't confuse
you're
a team with
value, you're kind of seeing, if you're starting to see that Alex and Eddie are really trying to deliver some value, and you find us to be, on the up and up, reach out to us, because we will connect you with those people that are on the up and up and that are really doing it, that are likely going to help foster your growth. So anyway, that was my thought.
Yeah. So, and then when you interview with a team, I think this is some of the stuff that you want to ask of what we're going over here. Hey, what does your culture look like? What do your daily activities look like? What do you actually do as a team to create leverage points that I'm not going to have to do, i.e. an open house flyer or buy a system? The system that we use is $12,000 a year. So it's not always in the budget for especially that newer agent. You may not even have a big database that you're able to nurture with something like that. So, that's that aside. But you need to interview and be really clear. Am I joining somebody because I like the way they dress? I like, their personality of that team leader? Okay, but I would say you want to be interviewing somebody personally. If I was back, in the business for 1 or even 5 years, I had an agent come to me the other day that, was struggling. And I sat down with him and I went over what we did. And he's like, oh, this looks really, really good. I think this is what I need. And I was like, yeah, man, I can see it would be really hard as an individual agent to do it on your own. And then, he kind of got back to me. He's like, well, I think I'm going to keep doing this. And I'm like, okay, I don't get it, man. Like, I'm showing you here, we've got agents on the team making $200,000 a year. You haven't made $30,000 this year, and you want to keep doing that. I guess he just didn't want to do all the other things of the role play. And I'm like, this is part of our culture. Like, if you're not going to do this, you're not going to make $200,000. Even if you came on our team, we're not even going to give you leads because you're not doing the culture stuff to shore up your skills to get better at the leads we send you. So, yeah, I think what I base my bottom line is here is we're probably talking to a lot of. I think no matter what we say here, like, you can hear it from my side as the team leader of developing the team, and you can also see it as the individual agent. Like, if I'm struggling and I just don't want to do all this stuff, it just seems so overwhelming. Maybe you want to join a team, but be careful about the team that you join. And maybe listening to this podcast helps you understand the questions you want to ask them so that you can step into something that isn't just a club, that's actually a team that has a system that works.
Yeah, Liz, that was a wonderful way to kind of put a bow on it. And I would just add that, yes, we're on YouTube. Yes, sometimes people are afraid to reach out, but just reach out. Leave a comment. Find us. We're easy to Google. Alex is easy to Google. Eddie's easy to Google. You'll find us very quickly. Reach out to us, and let's see how we can help you. And at least try to figure out maybe what your next move might be. Certainly would welcome you into the EXP family if that's the right fit for you. But that's kind of where we start, just identifying kind of where you are right now, and leave you with something that's going to help you make a decision and grow your business. And I think this foundation, Alex, I think you probably agree too, is this foundation of 8 points that we shared today is really a good solid start. And I think it touches on most things. And even if you only lived by this for those first 100 days, I think you would do yourself a huge favor. I think you'd get pretty far just with this, And so if anybody else is out there that's watching, love to add some other, successful point or tip that's helped them along their journey from kind of mediocre or at the start to something that they really are proud of in terms of where they've grown to, please share it in the comments. And as always, if this is the kind of content you love, Alex and I sharing what we know, what's worked for us over these past 20 plus years. And as we kick off this, what I would like to consider a series of how to make 2025 your best year yet, and certainly reach those levels that you've got in mind. So I would say stay tuned and consider subscribing so that we can bring that content to you. And as always, thanks, Alex, man. I think this one was valuable. It was helpful, and I like to think that it's a good starting point for a lot of people. So thanks, man.
Thanks, brother. Have a great one.
We'll see you on the next one.